You're probably wondering what counts as taxable side hustle income. And the answer to that is anything that earns you money. So whether you are doing Uber Eats, DoorDash, any content creation, YouTube, OnlyFans, TikTok, any of that, as long as you're making money, that's going to count as taxable business income. And in Canada, if you are a Canadian tax resident, you get taxed on worldwide income. So you're going to have to include that and complete the Form T2125, which is what I'm going to show you later in the video anyways. When does my side hustle money become business income? And the answer to that is there's no such thing as hobbies when you're making money. If you have an intent to profit, you are going to have to file as business income, and you're going to have to report that income as business income using that T2125 form, which I'll show you later. But essentially, yeah, it's not a hobby. If you're making money, it is what it is. You're going to have to file that T2125. What are some expenses that you can claim? Any expense that is related to your business that you need to have to expend to earn income. So what does that mean? It means that if you have to have an expense in order to earn income, you can deduct it. Okay, that's a business expense. If you have personal expenses, you can't deduct that in your business, okay? Any personal expense that you deduct in your business will not be allowed, and you're gonna have a huge tax filing due when they audit you. What is GST? What is the GST threshold? The GST threshold is 30,000. So essentially, if you're making like 10, 20,000 a year, you're good. You don't need to collect GST. You don't need to file a GST return. You're gonna get into that GST range when you're making about 30,000 a year. That's when you're gonna need to file a GST return and start collecting GST. Other than that, you're at that 10, 20,000 mark. Don't worry about it. You don't need to file a GST return. And then your audit triggers. What are some things that people get? What the CRA audits? Well, most of the time it's large cash deposits. If you're expensing personal expenses in the business, these things are going to get caught, and you're going to get a huge audit trail, of many years. You're going to get audited for many years in the past. Okay, that's how the CRA functions. If they catch a big mistake, they're going to look into the past returns as well, and it's going to be a big headache for you. So don't make the mistake. File your T2125 and make sure you're paying your taxes and that everything you're doing is correct. Don't expense your personal expense in the business. Otherwise, you're going to have a huge headache. Now I'm going to show you that T2125 form. For all you guys making a side hustle, making money, and it turns into income, this is the form, the T2125, that you have to fill out in Canada. So while you're doing your Canadian tax return, your T1, you're going to have to fill out this statement of business or professional activities. So as long as you're making money, and it doesn't really matter, like what I was saying before, worldwide income for Canadian tax residents, you're going to have to fill out this form. Here you have your Part 1 identification. You're going to have to fill out your name, your social insurance, all the information about your business, okay? Not a difficult part. Internet business activities. If you have money through a URL, if you're making any sort of cash through a website, a web page, anything like that, you'll have to fill this part out and give it the website address. Business income or professional income depends on what your side hustle is. Most of it will be business related. If it's like a professional service, like you're an accountant, lawyer, doctor, then you'd fill out this side. But since you're in business, you're doing something, it's going to be considered business income. You're going to put your gross sales here. Your expenses will come down over here. So here are the list of expenses that are generally allowed, for tax purposes. Make sure though, again, this has to be to generate business income, so it has to be for business purposes. You can't mix any of your personal expenses here, or they will not be allowed. So you can take a read of a couple of the expenses I was mentioning before: advertisement, meals and entertainment, bad debt, insurance, interest, etc. So that's when you fill that out. Then you'll get your net income for tax purposes. This will also depend. Do you have any partners? Is there anyone else that owns some sort of shares of your business? Maybe you're doing a side hustle with a friend. So then you would add your friend's name here and his percentage. If you're using your home, you're working from home to do it, you can also include some of those home office expenses, but it will have to be prorated for your square footage. So if you have, you know, an apartment of 500 square feet and your home office is 100 square feet, then you can only really do 100 divided by 500, so 1/5 or 20% of these expenses will be included. And that's pretty much it. This form is not hard. You can do it yourself, but you will need to do it if you have a side hustle business. You need to include that income and get taxed on it. Otherwise, you'll be, in big trouble from the CRA. So don't make that mistake. Fill out this T2125 when you do your T1, and things will be all good. Don't panic about side hustle taxes. The key is reporting correctly and keeping documentation. Subscribe for more clear Canadian tax guidance from a CPA and check out the description for all my favorite tools and websites.